Hello, thanks for joining Reality Talks. Today's topic is spirituality. Is it a voice in America today? To those who have joined us, thank you for listening. And if you would like to appear on the show, call 248-599-2827 or email smithmanie@gmail.com. That's SMITHMAMIE@gmail.com. Spirituality is a word tossed around in societies all over the world. But what does it really mean? Today, we will talk about it three ways: as a universal entity and meaning, what it means in the lives of everyday people, and how many religions classify it. Today's guests are Carolyn, Janice, Dr. Beverly, and Jenny Deason. Now, of course, I'm Mamie. Okay, we're going to start by telling you who people are. And I'm going to ask Dr. Beverly to give us a little bit about herself. And I'm going to start by saying Jenny Deason Copeland is a Nixon historian, owner of Crazy Horse Publishing, and author of numerous books. My favorite then, Tiananmen West, Why Nixon Ordered the Kent State Massacre. And Carolyn Janice, a consultant, corporate administrator, and owner of Book Your Success Now Publishing. Now, Dr. Beverly, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Dr. Beverly. I am a pastor in the city of Gary, Indiana. My ministry is House of Bread Outreach Ministry. We focus on teaching the whole person. I have an earned doctorate degree in education administration with a specialization in higher education leadership. I have 10 plus years of experience in higher education, expressly in the field of academic advising and student retention. I also work with nonprofits and in our community, and I am a writer, a poet, a lyricist, and and the mother of two beautiful daughters.
Hey, that is an impressive resume. Well, I kind of chuckled to myself when you said that you are a doctor, you earned a doctorate. I found that quite amusing. Because you get your stripes, don't you, when you go through that program? I earned mine too, so
you understand.
That's what I'm saying. I recognize you're emphasizing that earned, because you do get your stripes when you have that behind your name.
Yes.
When you earned it. Well, let's just talk about now. We're going to begin with Carolyn. Spirituality. Is it a voice in America now? Is there a difference between religion and spirituality? If so, what is it?
Let's see. I want to say, according to the Bible, I don't think there's a distinction between religion and spirituality, but there's a distinction between true religion and false religion. And of course, that's found in James 1:27, I believe, where it says true religion is that you take care of the widows and the orphans when they're afflicted, and to keep ourselves pure, from the world. So that indicates that there is a false religion. And so, spirituality and religion to me are one, if it's true religion. Religion, false religion, of course, is just having the facade and not really being aware of your surroundings, because that's what the book of James talks about, is being aware that you have neighbors and friends and people in need, and you turn a blind eye and you don't respond. That's not religion. But when you respond, when you are aware, when you're cognizant, when you're sensitive to the needs of your neighbors, people that you interact with every day, then that's your religion, when you help them when they're in need. And also that you live a pure life so that others can be won over by your testimony. So that's the difference between the two that I feel.
Okay, Jenny, jump right in there. Tell us what you think.
Well, we've discussed this in my family oftentimes, and we've boiled down religion to a business that is one that dictates what you must think to belong to that religious group. And if you veer from that dogma, then you are not in their religion. So where spirituality to us means you're seeking on a plane with the shared consciousness of all goodness, that you are trying to find a way to find a path that is doing the most good, the least harm. But it doesn't mean that you're paying for a building. That's more religion. It doesn't mean that you're going to church. You may be taking a walk in the woods when you feel most inspired spiritually. And I think part of that comes from the fact that we have some Cherokee roots. And so being out in the wilderness or the forest or the trees means so much to us. It actually is a way I connect with God, that one universal mind that I would call God. And therefore, that's my separation between religion, which I see as a dogma. Must follow this, whether or not you're Muslim or whatever. There are certain things you must do, to just seeking a more loving namaste kind of way of looking at each other. I honor the God within you all.
Dr. Beverly?
Well, this is in my wheelhouse since my dissertation was on spirituality in African American female faculty at predominantly white institutions. And so I have my dissertation in front of me, so I'm going to use that as a reference point. And what I wrote was that religion is closely related with the rituals, rules, and regulations of church participation and denominationalism. This is according to Patton. The term religion is derived from the Latin word religio, meaning good faith ritual. Good faith rituals practiced by assemblies provide structure for groups of people with the same or similar beliefs. Spirituality, on the other hand, and this is what I believe, is that spirituality is personal by nature, whereas religion tends to be social in context. And so therefore, when a person has a spiritual practice, it does not necessarily mean that that spiritual practice is accompanied by a religious ritual. So therefore, because we are created beings, we have a sense of spirituality because God would not create us and not put in us a consciousness to be aware of who he is and who he can be in our lives. So I definitely see a distinct difference between religion and spirituality.
Listen to all of what you said, and I'm going to direct another question back to Carolyn. Then, because of how she explained it, Carolyn, then if you believe that they're the same, then can one be religious and not be spiritual?
Well, we have defined religion in our own terminology. So if we really are spiritual, as in my opinion, if we really are spiritual, then we define things in terms of the spirit, what is true, what is real, what is authentic, what was determined in the mind of God. So for me, there is no distinction.
I tend to believe that one can be spiritual and one can be religious and not spiritual. I see it every day.
Yes.
They go to church, They abide by a set of doctrine religiously.
Yes.
They pay their tithes. They do whatever they're asked to do.
Yeah.
And I believe you can be religious and you can be spiritual with your religion, but I don't believe that you necessarily will be spiritually, but you can be religious. That is kind of what I take away. But I get you. I think that's a great point that you're making, that you don't view the doctrine of people seriously unless they are spiritual. Is that basically what you're saying, Carolyn?
Yes, yes.
What do you say to a person who says spirituality should be the foundation of the laws and policies of America?
If you are a decent country, let me start there. If you are a decent country, if you honor and respect your cohabitants in that country, then of course, right there, you are honoring the God within each of us. By honoring each individual, then there is a spirituality to that. If you are not a just country, if you are one with systemic issues that are unfair to others, then you are not as spiritually developed a country as you need to be, or less honoring of one another, that God within each of us. And we need to find a path back, because it's important to a decent country that you honor that in each of us.
Toya?
I think that I agree, we have to honor the spirituality in each of us. But at the same time, we have to give one another the space to be ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, we tend to judge based on the other. I'm this, you're that. And so I think when it comes to spirituality, allow me to do what I do and practice what I practice. But as long as I bring decency, morality to the table, okay, that's the important thing. You know, we have to allow people to be who they are because we all have different experiences. Okay, and so one may do, the other one may not. And as far as us being a moral and making decisions, no, from a just perspective, we don't, because we've been taught materialism. Everything's made from materialistic things and from physical things. And so we have to go back within ourselves, and that's an individual journey, and it takes time. And so we have to give one another that space.
Wow. Let me just tell you before I ask Dr. Beverly to respond to that. Toya is a poet. She is a freelance graphic artist, an author of the book. I did have her on Talk to the Author some years ago. Life in the Black Simpler Time and Place. Should the foundation of our laws and our policies have spirituality as their foundation?
Because as I'm sitting here, one of the things that I'm thinking about is that America supposedly was founded on some sense of spirituality. However, as an African-American woman, I'm not sure what happened to that when all of my people came across the Middle Passage, as well as the indigenous people who lived here, whose country you have stolen. So, you know, have we ever been a spiritual country? That's you know, a question that I grapple with. So I have difficulty answering that question on the surface, because to me it has so many variances in it that I don't understand, you know, how your God allows you to come in and rape a people and steal from a people, and you know, and then so now we have this as a foundation, which now I'm gonna have to agree with my sister on false religion and true religion. And when I read slave narratives, and Frederick Douglass says, well, you know, the worst slave owner that I had was a Christian. So it's hard for me to be able to say how are we spiritual at all. I believe that the people that are in power are the ones who lack the spirituality. And so I don't want to digress and go And I don't know, Dr. Maybe if I even answered the question, but those are my rambling thoughts. How about
No, I get an idea where you're going. I really do. and it has a very sound foundation, what you're saying. I really do. Carolyn,
Yes.
what's your response?
Yes, I believe so. But whether or not it is at this point, I think we are so wrapped up in the false religion which allows, people or people in power to be able to, create classes and different types of systems that only one can benefit if the other one is down. And so that's all part of the false religion fallout, the counterproduction of productive efforts of that. So to me, it's not surprising because, it just happened to be Black people that at this point just seems like that are getting a lot of the discrimination. But it could be any, if you really are spiritual, it could be any class of people. It could be any color. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. But only your spirituality will be able to stand up in the face of authority and say, no, I'm not going to go with the status quo of you all creating a system that profits from keeping another race or keeping another ethnic group at bay and cheating them out of certain things or whatever. So to me, we just happen to be Black. But it's not right if we were Indian, Chinese, it doesn't matter. The ethic can only be upheld if there's true spirituality.
America says by its laws, constitutional laws, that there should be a separation, but the church and the state should be separated. I think it uses the term state. Am I correct? Yeah, I think it uses that term. So they say clearly that there should be a separation of the two. But I'm in harmony with what all of you are saying. Even within those boundaries, there should be moral values that we adhere to in this country. Because if we don't adhere to those moral values, we're going to have chaos.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I think that we will self-destruct because, the Bible says that the foundations be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? Mm-hmm. And so therefore our foundations they've never been true. They've always been based on false religion. Yes. And so now what happens with anything that decays for a long period of time? It's going to explode or break up or, cause what we're seeing. And so people now, and I also feel that because we are a nation that is so, I don't know if, I think Toya said this, they're so materialistic. Mm-hmm. So capitalistic, so sensual, meaning that we don't believe in the spirit. We don't believe in things that we cannot see. Mm-hmm. So now that we're seeing what we've created, now everybody wants to turn, like none of this is happening, And so because we have decided that we're not, because you can't legislate spirituality. You can put any law on the book you want. You can write it however you want. But you can't legislate the hearts of people. Only the mind of God and the spirit that he placed in you can legislate your heart. And so having laws on the book is almost like training a child who insists they're just going to be disobedient.
Jenny, did you want to respond before we move on? I just kind of glanced at you, or did you want to? Because I'm open to any kind of response.
Oh, no,
I would like to. This is reality talk, so I want the real deal.
Real deal.
Yeah, the real deal. And I'm a real deal person. I shy away from it on Talk to the Author with Dr. Mamie Smith, but with that's why I named this show Reality Talk.
I would like to comment on that.
Huh? Yes, you want to come in? Toya?
Yes. I think the system that was created here in the United States, the capitalism, it is a system that consumes. And so it consumes everything until it eventually begins to consume the people. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're seeing now. The house is actually on fire. Mm-hmm. And there's no way to put it out. You just got to let this one burn. And we have to start going within ourselves, finding out our truth, finding out our benevolence, finding our compassion, And then we have to start building again from the ground up. We can't build from the top down. It's over with.
Yeah.
I agree. And in talking with some of my friends, I'm going to say my white friends, I will say to them that this country is built on a lie. And so the reason that 400 years later, that we're having the same systemic racism that we've had over 400 years is because we started with a lie. But now, does that mean that we have not improved it? Of course we have. We say we are a democratic society. We say we speak for equality. So we're moving toward a more perfect union. So in doing that, that means that everybody is supposed to share the same thing that each other shares. No one should be more superior or inferior to another. And I think what has happened with America, and I love America. I lived in 2 other countries, and I would want to never live anywhere else other than America.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean I go along with everything America does. And so it is people like ourselves, talking like ourselves, because we want to change America. We want to make it that more perfect union. But America's history is that I'm going to say these beautiful things, but I'm not going to do them. And that's what needs to change.
And I would like to say that I kind of, I have white friends and all kind of color friends. So down here in Houston, we're a melting pot like New York. But I kind of feel sorry for, not, them. I just feel sorry for them, especially those that have racist views, because it's a lie. And it's an awful thing to be born, raised, and bred in a lie. And
Yes.
so they are suffering from the fear because of lies, and we're suffering from the fear of bondage. So on both sides, we're both suffering. And I think if our eyes became open, we would really see that we're only fighting one enemy, and that's fear. I don't even know what it feels like to be raised in an environment where your parents are haters. And this is not all white people. It's just some that your parents are haters, and they put that in the child. So the child never has an opportunity to even experience truth, So, and the same thing on Blacks, we feel like sometimes that we're still really in slavery, and we're not, and so breaking that mindset of fear as well.
Well, I'm going to add another one to that. And Jenny has read my book, An American Story, My Family and Yours. I think it's based on fear, greed, and ignorance. I think, and I'm going to be very, very honest, it's on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, it's on both sides. It's not all white people who have fear. It's not all white people who are racist.
Yep.
I see racism on both my side too. And
Yes.
but what's different is the power structure. When I talk about systemic racism, I'm talking about not individual white people. I'm talking about the culture of our country, our laws, our policies, how we deal with those laws and how we deal with those policies,
Right.
how we enforce them, what ones that we make and sustain at the expense of another. That's what I call systemic racism. And but when you talk about, I talked to some of my African American friends who said, well, I think every white person is racist. Well, I said, no, I don't. I don't think every white person is racist. Yeah. So you've got, everybody needs to look within themselves, ask themselves, who am I? What do I stand for? Do I want to stay in the same place that I am? Or do I want to move forward? How do I really feel? And I think we don't ask ourselves those inner questions. How do I feel about my white friend down the street? How do I feel about my Black person across the road? I don't think we ask ourselves those questions and then give ourselves honest answers. I think we lie to ourselves individually as well as our country. Anybody want to jump in and respond to that?
Absolutely. I think Dr. Beverly mentioned that one of the things that's wrong with the country is materialism. And when you trace what's happened to the African American Black people in this country, you will find that systemic, what I call the capitalism that we have in America right now is greed capitalism. It's unregulated. It's stealing from the workers at Amazon when they're not paid an hourly wage. And Bezos is the richest man in the world. So it's like, how can you let this go on and these rich people not see a French Revolution and a bunch of guillotines lined up? At some point, they've got to start realizing that the people will take over, and the streets of our country are now being taken over. And we are having a revolution, and it's long overdue, because when I research what's happened to the Black man in America and woman, it makes me angry, because things like, when we talk about systemic racism, things like taking away the GI Bill from the soldiers who come back from World War II, they gave it to the whites, but not the Blacks.
Yeah.
So you're stealing a layer of wealth. You're not allowing wealth building, which continues to enslave people to whatever the Bezoses of the world will pay them.
Mhm.
And it's not a living wage. And Bezos should be very ashamed of himself, as should quite a few other people. Like the guy Jimmy John's, who owns Jimmy John's. So they weren't even paying for the kids who were delivering their sandwiches for gas or car use or anything. So there are too many wealthy people out there who have done it, walking on all of us who are sick and tired of it happening.
Sure. Do we move on to anybody else?
No, I was going to say, I think this comes back to a culture of falsehood. You know, America is, you know, I'm with Dr. Mamie. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, but this culture of falsehood is overturning everything in society. It's like you said, Toya, the house is on fire. We can't put it out. It's just going to have to burn to the ground. And then we're going to have to, hopefully, prayerfully, rebuild, because none of it was true anyway. Carolyn opened up by saying true religion is to take care of the widows, as the scripture says, and to see about those who are, we've never done that. So the Bezos of the world have gotten rich even on a lie, because of the fact that you're not rich because you actually work to get rich. And so it goes against all the grains of spirituality and religion as well.
Well, you make some very valid points. We're going to move on to, and I'm going to ask Toya if she will start the answer to this question. As we look at the criminal justice system in America, what do you see in it that speaks to the presence or the lack of spirituality? And let me just go on and say a little bit more before you jump in there, Toya, and answer that. In 2017, 12% of the American adult population, the African adult population, was 12%, but 33% of it was in the prison system. When you look at that compared to whites, 64% of the adult population is white, but yet only 30% of it is in prison, incarcerated.
Wow.
Many Americans would have us believe that that's because African Americans, that's part of systemic racism, are more violent than whites, when we know they're not, because we look at the history of the country, we see where the violence has come from. So, but that's what they would have many people believe, that's why it's like that. But we know that's not like that. How do you respond to that? Beginning with you, Toya.
Well, you know, I did some research, and it was from the Vera report. It's VERA. And the Vera report, the latest information I could get was from 2015. And it talks about the prison system. It keeps track of the numbers of people incarcerated throughout the United States. And so in California, it costs $65,000 per year to house one inmate. Okay, in 2015, that was an $8 billion business for them. Okay, so the Vera report was collecting information from all of these states. The states that were predominantly white refused to give any information. The states that were predominantly black and brown, each of those states were billion-dollar businesses.
Wow.
Okay, so it goes to show you that we are not looked at as humans. We are looked at as commodities to be bought, sold, and traded. That's what Jeff is doing, Bezos is doing. That's what the Walton family is doing. You know, it's like a big Ponzi scheme. Everything goes to the top, and they use all of us at the bottom. But what's happening now is it's coming to the light, and we're standing up and we're saying, okay, we see that. We see that young black men can be shot down in the street, a young lady can be sleeping in her bed, and nothing happens. Okay, but we have to keep standing up and saying no more. This is their system they created for them to benefit by. They are not going to stop. Like Frederick Douglass says, power will concede nothing without a demand.
Mm-hmm. Great points. Carolyn?
Well, I'm just going to go back to the most powerful entity on the planet, which is the church, the body of Christ. And we say that we are members of this institution, but yet we let imperfections go on like this for centuries. And we know that anytime that you don't address the situation, perhaps there might be something within yourself that is a part of it. So that is a sobering fact for the church of the Lord Jesus Christ, as we say. But yet we let our brothers and sisters, again, it doesn't matter what color, we just happen to be black, to let them be mutilated and killed off by a system that we say in God we trust, but yet your works does not display that. So if you still have that belief in your mindset that there's an ethnic group that is not as valuable as you are, then you are most likely will not address it. You'll continue to ignore it and you won't acknowledge it, right? So the church is the most powerful entity on the planet, not money, the church is. But if we don't stick to truth or true spirituality or true religion, then we have no impact, and it continues to and now we continue to have a monster. We've created a monster on our hands because there's no balance. The church basically just balances the world. It doesn't take over the world and give you these ideologies and all type of religious rules to try to go against your will. We create balance. So when there's no balance, the power structure is totally out of whack, and so people suffer because of that. So the criminal justice system, I mean, like they say, it is what it is. What are we going to do about it? You know, we can protest, you know, we can have conversations, but really, how can we dethrone a system that seemingly has all the power? How can we change it? So
let me jump right in before I go to Jenny. How are you defining church?
I'm defining church as the body of Christ, those that are born again believers, those that have accepted Jesus in their hearts.
Okay, let me stop you there.
Mm-hmm.
I have a family of 13, besides myself, all alive.
11.
There were 14 of us still alive. And we have these very deep discussions. I'm the only Christian Scientist in the bunch. And we have these deep discussions. And they say, you're saved because you accepted God, Jesus Christ as your Savior. I said, what does that mean? When I was 12 years old, I was baptized in the Baptist church. And the minister asked me if I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior. And I said, yes, I certainly do. I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't have any idea what that meant. I didn't know what was going to be required of me to, so why am I saying that? Because there's so many people out there who say those words but do not live those words. Or they don't even have any idea what those words mean.
Yes. So being saved is defined by the Bible only. So when I say, because I got saved, because they said, if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus Christ, believe in your heart that God is raised from the dead, you are saved. I did that.
What does that mean? Does that mean you say it, or does it mean you do it? See, there's a difference between, it's not what I say, it's what I do.
Yes.
So if you're defining, and I don't want to get too deep in this, I just got struck by that and I wanted to get your feedback on it. To say that is why I gave you that 12-year-old conversation. I said it and I meant it, but I had no idea what it meant. And the minister didn't tell me what it meant. He just told me I had to do right, otherwise I was going to go to hell. And I didn't want to go to hell. So I wanted to know what was right. Because he told me I was going to burn up if I went to hell. Do you see what I'm getting at, Carolyn? I'm getting at terms we throw out there in not only in our religion that we say, but we don't do. And I think that's part of this system that we have in America.
Yes, and so it's really a hard decision. And when you make a hard decision, you follow through with those decisions. My follow through with my hard decision was I started reading the Bible. I started praying. Changes started happening in my life, which means I felt differently about people.
Sure.
I didn't hate. I didn't, those old patterns that I had. So it was a hard decision. If a hard decision was not made, then you can't have follow through. So,
So if I hear you correctly, and then I'm going to move on to Jenny. If I hear you correctly, you're saying you must live spirituality.
That's from the heart. Yeah, it's from the heart. It's from the heart. It's not from the head. It's from the heart.
No, I don't mean that. Living means if you live it, you're going to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to do it. If you're going to do unto others as I would have them to do unto you, to me, I'm going to live that. I'm not going to just say that. I'm going to actually get out there and do that in the world that I live in. That's why I said, if I hear you correctly, you're saying it's not what you say, it's basically what you do. And then, and I get that, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. He said, as we look at the criminal justice system in America, what do we see in it that speaks to the presence or the lack of spirituality?
Well, what I've found in the research I've done is that there is a turning point in this country that happened recently that changed the prison systems from being paid for by the government to being paid for by institutions that were separate from the government. Much like what happened with Halliburton and the Army. There were those in charge under number 43 at the time who wanted to make and 41 as well. They wanted to take all this work that the GIs did, peeling potatoes, putting a mess hall together, and they privatized it. And they allowed Halliburton, this private company, to make money off of providing food for our soldiers that our soldiers used to cook for one another. So when you took it away from the GIs and you took that money and you made it a private company, instead of the meal costing 75 cents, it cost $7.50. And who made money off of that but his buddy Halliburton? The same privatization of our prison systems has gone on so that wealthy people can make more money. It has nothing to do with spirituality, has nothing to do with should these people be locked up. It has to do with a quota system of so many need to be arrested because so-and-so is so-and-so's uncle who needs to put money in his pocket.
Yeah, that's right.
It has nothing to do with justice, has nothing to do with spirituality.
Great point. Great point. And I think that was Toya's point. Am I correct, Toya?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Dr. Beverly, jump in there.
Well, I concur. I just think that Michelle Alexander wrote a book, The New Jim Crow. And I really, it's a book that speaks to the issues that we have with our current justice system. But it brings me almost back again, I'm sorry, to the founding of this country. This country was founded, as Toya has mentioned, and Jenny, and Carolyn and Dr. Smith, it's materialistic. So if you quote unquote free the people, you've got to find another set of people, or either the same set of people, to continue to make money off of. Mm-hmm. And so the God of capitalism rules the United States of America. That's just, I mean, I don't know if I can even add anything to that, because it's just, so if we do away with prison, and we do away with the profit of prisons, what new system will be developed so those who are in power can continue to make money?
Yeah,
that's it.
Good point.
That's it, Doc. That's it. That's it.
Okay, we're going to start with Dr. Beverly this time. And we're going to start with you with this one. As we look at politics in America, what do you see as lacking in how many politicians respond to moral values?
Wow. So I'm going to take this to the local for me.
Okay.
I am currently working with the Urban League in my city, and I live in Gary, and Gary has had a reputation in the past and continues to struggle to be a viable city and be seen as a viable city. And so we've had lots of profiteers, I'll just use that word. And so I feel like the politicians' idea of spirituality, it almost seems like some things are antithesis to each other. So when you say politician, a politician, you can't even imagine one being spiritual. Yet, however, when we look in scripture, we see Daniel, wow. We see Joseph, we see Esther, we see all of these men and women who were in governmental positions who were spiritual. And so it begs to differ that one can be spiritual and be in politics. But the other thing is that politicians should be the representatives of the people so that they can get the access to the things that they need. But it seems that they come into the office of being a politician to turn into, they might not be the big Jeff Bezos, but then they become the little Jeff Bezos. And so it defeats the purpose. And then, of course, it almost, I feel like it goes back to Toya's point, then the house is on fire. You know what I'm saying? And so you get a new set of politicians in, and either they tear down the house that's on fire, try to extinguish the fire, or just let the fire burn to the ground. And then people are hurt, are affected by this. Our schools are affected, our neighborhoods are affected, our churches are affected, because politicians have, I don't want to say decided, but that's the only other word I can think of, because it is your choice, to not live by any type of moral compass. And then I'm going to add, and then I'm going to close with this. Politics, as we think of it sometimes, is within the governmental spectrum. But if you go into some of our churches, there's politics. You go into our jobs, there's politics. And I don't want to be vulgar, but you got to kiss this in order to get that, and then they wipe your hand, and it's that. And so then you almost teach this legacy of lying, that you can't be honest. Good guys finish last, good girls finish last. And so we have this context of falsehoods that continue to weave themselves like almost a matrix of domination, as Audre Lorde would say. I think it was Audre Lorde. This matrix of domination in which you can't possibly tear that down. You have to start to build something new. And so I feel like, and I believe, based on my scriptural understanding, that we can have political leaders with moral compasses. However, in the 22nd century, it seems that it's going to be difficult for us to find those persons. But I believe, now this is my preacher coming out, I believe that if the house burns down, I believe we can take them ashes, scrape them, and build again. I just believe that, because God has given each one of us a spirit, and in that spirit, he's able to clean out some stuff, and then he can resurrect it. But if we want to continue, and this is the other thing, some people don't want to let this burn. Let it burn. You ain't got to be in the fire. Stand over there and look, but let it burn, because the burning is going to cause a purification and a process that we will not have if we continue to keep trying to repair a building that's on fire. I'm going to stop.
Okay, jump right in there, Toya. and
I mean, Doc said it. I mean, it's
keep the house from burning.
it is so true. I mean, some years ago, I was in a library and I went to pick up one book, and another book fell off the shelf. And the name of the book was Up the Organization. Okay, and this book, it's a really old book, but it talks about how this system was set up. All right, so John wants to make sure his son, John Jr., has a job. All right, so he's already paid the corporation for how many years John Jr. is going to sit in that office doing nothing. And he said the higher you go up on the floor, the less work they do and the more money they make. Okay, the system has to be totally dismantled. When we talk about the corruption, it's not only the politicians, it is the preachers, it is the housewives, it is some of the teens, because it's rampant. It's a system that has been taught to us. What we came here with as spiritual beings has been taught out of us. That's why we sit in quiet time and try to get back to who we truly were. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's why it's not like people aren't doing anything about it. People are gathering themselves so they can come to the table and collectively begin to do something about it. Okay, because the system that's here right now, this was created years beyond today. Okay, so we're talking about what we can do today, and they got it planned 50 years out. We have to start right now and go back to the basics. We have to begin to grow our own food. Church is going to have to start being in the living room. School is going to have to be in the garage. We're going to have to come off the grid and start learning how to use solar panels and everything. We have got to get to basics, because the thing is, anything that's materialistic or that they can gain or make money off of, they're going to do it.
Jenny, what do you say?
Well, on this particular one, all I can say is I don't know if politicians give up their moral compass in order to enter the building or what, but it really is, I mean, you believe in these people and you trust in these people. The minute they get in a situation where nothing that they enact as a law affects them, they're shielded from it because their Social Security is a different system. Their pension is a different system. If they aren't living the world the rest of us have to live, then I think they are giving up their moral compass just to walk in the building. And so I'm suspicious of any politician, no matter how good they've run their campaign. The minute they take that job, something happens. And I think it's they give up that moral compass. And not all of them. I don't want to pool a group together, but so many of them. And if you're living in that family, the Congress, they're close, they're touching one another every day, they are a shared consciousness, then is it a disease they all catch eventually?
Carolyn?
Well, yeah, I think even if they did come in with a moral compass, they would be bullied and they would be pushed out because the majority is corrupt. So I guess we should give credit to at least the ones that try, that get in the door, you know, and then somewhere along the way, you know, they just drop out whether it's from persecution or pressure or, just having to come against so much opposition to just do what is right for the people. So, you just have to be really strong and have a strong support system, not to be pushed out into the outskirts of the field of just trying to do what's right and what's moral. Is it impossible? No, but we only have leaders that come along and speak for the people once in a decade or once in a century. We don't get those every day. So when they do come along, there's a great appreciation for it, and they are able to accomplish things that people have tried to do on their own. And so we know that they are graced with a special power to be able to push the moral values of the people forward, where we can both live together in harmony. Well, all can live together in harmony.
I was listening to all of you, and I am not a politician. I'm too direct. If I believe it, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to try to do it. So I could never be one. Many years ago, I became a union rep at the school that I taught.
No.
I represented 35 teachers. And I a couple of things with the principal and many of the teachers saw how I stood up for them. They're like, let me get her, So anyway, I was a union rep for 14 years. And I went by the contract. I read it, I knew it backwards and forwards. I won most of my cases because the principals wouldn't do it, then I filed a grievance. Well, then I got noticed by the president of the union, and I became what they call some sort of a representative, where I would go out in the fields and talk to schools. I got a leave from the school that I was teaching in, and I was able to do that. And so I thought that this is great. Well, I went to one of the meetings later after I had done that for a while. I went to a union meeting. Of course, the president and all the big wheels in the union were sitting there. Detroit Federation of Teachers is what I'm talking about. And so came my turn. I was telling them what I had gone out and I had told these teachers that I was going to do for them that at these schools that I had gone to. And I was coming back to them to get help so that I could get this done. They looked at me and they said, we're not going to do any of that. So all the reason we sent you out there was so that you would just tell them you were going to do that so that they would vote for me as president. I was astounded because I was so naive. I thought if you said you were going to do something, you tried to do it. And so I made an effort at that time. I told you I was not a politician, but I thought it was so corrupt, my union was, that I was going to run against him. And I began to go to schools on my own, send out my stuff, because I thought this is not the way you're supposed to treat people. You're supposed to be honest with them. And so I ran the first time and I lost by 30%. I only got 30% of the vote. I thought that was devastating to me. I thought, oh, they don't want me. They don't really want to be treated this way. But I didn't know that the first time, if you run, that was a really, really good thing to get 30% of the vote. But that was a discouragement to me because I didn't understand what it meant to be a politician. I did not want to understand it. I wanted no part of it. So I dropped out completely and refused to run again. So I do get what all of you are saying, is that unless you are strong, you have a strong moral fiber in you that regardless to what somebody else does, you're going to follow your own conscience and your own moral compass. And it takes a very strong individual to do that, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Should leaders of our country express the very, not express it. When I use the word express, I mean live it. Say it and do it. That's what I mean by express. Should leaders express basic values like truth, honesty, integrity, and respect? Should they, and do you see it? And I think we've covered that. Anybody want to comment more on that? In our long explanations, I think we somehow covered that, but anybody wants to? and that's good, because you didn't clarify what you were saying. But if you want to add something else to it, we will. If not,
in true spirituality, that's innate. Those behaviors are innate. So it just comes with the territory. So there's no performance. It's your everyday life. Mm-hmm. And then you have people that can attest to that, because they see you behind closed doors. They see you when you're not on a platform. They see you when you don't have a microphone. So if you can have the same type of lifestyle in and out of different places that you frequent, it's from the heart and from you living your spiritual truth that it's an automatic thing. It's not something that you have to add to your repertoire or perform. It's just an automatic, innate, DNA sanctioned quality and character of being who you say you are. So
exactly. To add to that, I agree with that wholeheartedly. My dad had a 6th grade education, and I was born in the South. My dad owned lots of land, but we were very poor. A lot of that land came from my grandfathers. I own part of that land because it's been in the family for many years. And so, but we were very poor. But Dad, and there were so many of us. I told you I had 13 siblings.
Yeah, that's a lot.
We were very poor. And so, but my dad was this way. He didn't write a contract. Well, I'm a pencil paper person. If you're going to do something with me, I want a contract. I want your signature on it, and I'll give you mine, you know? That's how I function. But my dad was a person, if he said, I'm going to do that Saturday, he meant that. That was his word.
Yes.
And that was his bond. And he did everything that he could muster to do that. If he didn't do it or couldn't do it for some reason, he would go back to that person and say, well, you know, Johnny, I can't do it because da, 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 da. That to me was one of his sense of integrity that he had about himself. And consequently, I followed my daddy around. I was his boy for many years. He had 5 girls before he had a boy. And wow. So I was the 3rd one from the top. And so I followed him around. When he was building, I was there with him. I was doing, and he loved every bit of it because, he didn't have any boy to follow him around. So he loved all of it.
Yeah.
But in so doing that, he became my role model for integrity. You see, and so today, I have a problem if I tell somebody I'm going to do something and I don't get it done. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you're talking about, Carol. It becomes part of your DNA, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're talking about. Now we're going to take the last question is going to be the one that the topic is on. And that question is spirituality a voice in America as you listen to the news or programs in general? How do you respond? And we're going to start with Jenny.
Well, goodness gracious. I have to say that the programs I watch, I'm watching for levity or information. I love my Steve Colbert. He makes me laugh. And I need a laugh, especially right now. With this COVID thing going on, every once in a while I feel myself in kind of a COVID depression and kick my butt out of it. It's like, come on, look how blessed you are and how much you have. What are you sad about? And knock yourself out of it. but it's hard to find spirituality in the general information that is placed on the TV. If we define spirituality as the goodness and the blessings towards the God in all of us, and therefore truth and honesty and kindness and sincerity, and it's there, but it's not couched in, it's not out front. It's not in your face. It's like, we'll be PC. We'll not be too upfront with this. We don't want to offend anybody by being too spiritual. And so I'd sometimes like to see a little more, because I think it makes us more human.
Great point. Carolyn?
Yeah, I agree. It's the voice actually of spirituality is just muted right now. We got people moving their mouths, but we can't hear nothing. We can't. We just can't hear you. So it's very muted right now, and for that reason, people are suffering, because we just want to hear, like Jenny was saying, we want to hear the moral goodness, the kindness, the joy. We want to focus in on what's good, what's lovely, what's honest, what's true, what's a good report. We need that. And so the news is basically trying to, it's just like the coronavirus, the host, it is just looking to replicate itself. It's the fear. It's a fear monger, right? So it wants to continue to perpetrate fear versus, information, because the underlining spirit or what you feel in your heart after you finish listening to all the news and whatever that they coin as information is the fear. It's the hopelessness. It's the despair.
Gloria?
As far as the news goes, I mean, it's part of the, what do you want to call it, the organization, or it's part of the system, the news is. And I often tell people, that's a good place to start with the news. Take the Fox, MSNBC, CNN, am I missing one there? But take any one of those, take one of the anchors, just one anchor, research that anchor, and start seeing the connections, okay? Everybody's interconnected. Everybody came out of a previous administration. So how can you trust any of it? It's a bunch of propaganda, and it's made to administer fear so that we will stay in our place.
That's right.
But we're getting uncomfortable now. There's not enough room in the box anymore, and we're starting to wiggle, okay? And so we're looking at other means. I don't know, they say the Pentagon created the internet, and this is gonna probably be one of their worst creations, because we're starting to be informed now, okay? We're seeking on our own now. Think about 5 or 10 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So we are moving forward. The thing is, spirituality will work against this process. So I don't expect to turn on anything and see it being administered.
Yeah.
I believe that, again, we have to go within. We have to have conversations like this with all these beautiful ladies. And we have to begin to share it with other people.
Sure.
But no, as far as what we're going to get out there, no. They're going to give us what they need to keep us in our place.
And if I hear you, Toya, you're saying, okay, so that we don't live in a vacuum, we're gonna select the stations that we want to look at, because we don't want to live in a vacuum ourselves, or we're going to go on the internet or whatever. But we're going to take it and we're going to analyze it. We're going to analyze it. We're going to see the similarities in it. We're going to root out the untruths based on our own sense of spirituality, our own sense of integrity, our own sense of honesty and love and peace and all of those qualities that I consider to be spiritual qualities. And we're going to bring in Dr. Beverly in. You want to preach us another sermon, Dr. Beverly?
Now listen, I'm always ready. No, but as I was listening to everyone speak, the only thing I could say is that I feel like the news and whatever programs, a number of them are just a vehicle as part of the tool for the systemic racism and oppression that we see. It's just, it's another money building tool. I feel like what Toya said, she said they're all interconnected. They all came out of somebody's previous administration. And so having access now to other news channels, to other forms of news, to news in other countries. Like, you know, when I found out that over in Africa, the locust plague is worse than it's ever been from biblical days. I've never heard nothing of that on the American news. And yet, you know, as my younger daughter says, how is this world news, mommy? And we only talk about America. But when you're self-centered and you're about making money, then it's always only about you. Because if I look outside, then I might see that, oh, their house is not burning across the street. So what do we need to do so we don't end up like that? You know, so it's those simple things. So me, myself, I really don't watch the news. I will read the news because that allows me to be able to analyze myself. And it also allows me to place certain limits. So, and often because I'm out amongst the people, not as much as I should be, but when I am out, you know, people will tell you what's going on in the world. You know, they know everything before you can get, you know, before you can get to the news. They already know what it is. You know what I'm saying? And so I have two millennials in my house. So, you know, they already, you know, they have the news in real time, so to speak. And so I think that we can add that the news and the programming of the news is part of the whole system of propaganda. And as Toya said, keeping us in our place. It just all reminds me of the plantation mentality. And I'm just going to stop there because I will preach another sermon.
Well, having heard all of those lovely expressions, I want to end this by saying that we can't depend on our local news, our world news. If I hear you correctly, you're saying don't rely on any one thing. Don't rely, look at people that you mingle with, your sense, your religious, your spirituality, however you call it. Maybe the news, maybe the internet. We've got to be informed if we live in this human world that we live in. We have to be informed, because that's not only do we have a responsibility of keeping our immediate families loved and protected and safe, we have that same responsibility with the world. That's what I believe. I pray for myself, I pray for my family, but I also pray for the world. And so if we don't know what is going on in the world, then we just pray a prayer that hopefully will be, but I believe in being specific. I'm a great follower of Jesus. And I use a lot of his examples in the Bible to pattern my life out of. And he was a person who gave examples. They call them parables. And so what he would do so the people could understand the spiritual nature that he had, that they didn't have, he would use something that they connected with so that he could make that spiritual point with them. Because he recognized that he taught spirituality to them and they didn't have it, they were going to be way out there in left field and he wasn't going to help them. So I do think it's necessary that we apprise ourselves of what's going on in the world with as many sources as we can, but use our moral fiber to disseminate what is true and what is untrue. Anybody else want to say something before we shut this down?
I just want to say, Dr. Mamie, I appreciate being a part of this evening. I appreciate your hospitality. And ladies, it was a pleasure being with all of you. And a special thank you to my sister who thinks that I'm thebomb.com.
It was great meeting all of you. And thank you, Mamie, for this opportunity.
Oh, well, thank you. I was going to say how much I enjoyed you and then give you an opportunity to respond. You did it. I love it. I love it. So now I'm going to ask the other two ladies if they want to say something in response to that.
Thank you for the opportunity and for having my sister. You see, she is much more intellectual than I am. I am very plain and dry, kind of. But
I
she
just
has
am
done,
more animated.
she does all the legwork of the research and all that kind of stuff. My mind gets tired, after so many cases and all that kind of stuff. So thank you. I appreciate you offering your hospitality to us. Thank you. And
You're
I thank
welcome.
you for meeting the other ladies as well.
Georgia, you want to say something? Well, I'm going to say, and this is Dr. Mimi Smith, saying, when we talk real, or we don't talk at all.